Hey, do you want to build a stronger family, create a better life? Well, that's what Divorce with Heart is all about. It's a show where I guide you along your divorce and co-parenting journey using the heart's wisdom, intuition, and legal expertise. So sit back, take a deep breath, relax. My name is Gina DiPrima. Let's get started. Hey, welcome. How is everybody? I know you can't hear me and respond, but I'm feeling your energy and I'm feeling like you're doing, we're okay. I'm okay. I hope so anyway. I'm Gina DiPrima, and today I have a special guest on with me. Ashley is from California, and she's become a friend of mine, and we met through a business coach, actually. It was helping me get my coaching practice off the ground, which you've heard me talk so much about here through divorce intelligence and the different programs that I offer and the conscious uncoupling. Anyway, that's how Ashley and I met. And then lo and behold, surprise to her, she found herself on the other side of a situation needing my help. So on the side of a breakup, on the side of having to go through a heartbreak. And that's what we're going to talk about here today. And I'm so glad that she's here to join us because she's just such a wonderful person. And her story, I think, is so inspirational. And that's why I really wanted to bring her on to share because, it's still new. It's still a new, fresh experience for her. But notwithstanding that, just in the short period of time that she's had to kind of adjust to this massive life change, which you're going to hear about, the way that she's done it, the things that she's done, I just think are so inspiring. And it's just an absolute beautiful, beautiful example of what's really possible and what can really open up for you when you shift your mind, when you look at things differently, when you make a decision to stop blaming the other person, throwing your anger out there, and instead make a decision to kind of shift into your heart and look at the situation from a different perspective, from a more heart-centered perspective. And really, that's what we're about here at Divorce with Heart. We're about changing the paradigm of divorce, changing the face of divorce so that we are hopefully together working to, heal ourselves, heal our families so our children can grow up and be loving, stable adults, the whole thing. No more of that the trauma from that old paradigm of divorce that seems to linger on forever, affecting, husbands and wives even after they've divorced, and most certainly their children for years and generations to come. I mean, that's the old familiar paradigm that's just caused so much damage for so many people. And so, the goal here is to kind of shift out of that, to look at the situation from a new perspective. And that's what I'm really hoping that you can get today from Ashley's story and from her sharing some of her experience and what she's been going through, because in just a short period of time, she's already made such an incredible shift and is already moving forward in her life and in her situation in such a positive way. So I'm so grateful for her. I'm so glad to have her on. And let's just get started. Ashley, are you there?
I am. Hi, Gina. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thank you. I know your story has been, it's really meant a lot to me. I think particularly because of how quickly you were able to just really make a shift. And I just know that there's going to be so many people listening that can identify with your experience and what you went through. So why don't we start there? Can you just share a little bit about your relationship and what kind of brought you to that point, or what led up to that day when all of a sudden, you had to face the reality that there was going to be a breakup?
Sure. Yes. So thank you for saying that. I don't feel like it has been a quick shift, but with lots of support, yours included, it has definitely helped me keep my mind, somewhat clear and in the right direction. So my ex and we met through one of those dating apps, Tinder, and we moved very quickly. And now that I look back, I can see the red flags that I ignored and decided to continue on. And 2 years into our relationship, I got pregnant, and halfway through the pregnancy, we got engaged. And despite any hardships that we had went through up until that point, we decided that we were going to start a family. We were going to make it work and figure things out. And he had started a business and put, all of his hard work and effort and money into it, and went through a lot of challenges, and that really put a lot of stress on our relationship. And we ended up coming out the other side of that okay. And I just remember thinking when I first met Gina, wow, what she does is amazing, but I'm so glad I don't need her. But, I just remember thinking my relationship is in a great place right now, but man, if anything ever happened, I know who I'm going to call. And sure enough, my ex's parents moved in, and I had been a stay-at-home mom for 2.5 years and had a little bit of a hard time finding work before that, just because I had moved to California with a social work degree, and that doesn't pay very well in California compared to the cost of living out here. So, I ended up feeling kind of ganged up on by him and his parents, and it got to the point where I felt like, despite having no work, no vehicle, no nothing really, I had to get the heck out of there. So I took our 2.5-year-old son and I left, and I went and stayed with family for a little while. And, I just have a lot of faith, and a lot of things have randomly come together for me somehow. And, I had no money to my name. I ended up selling my engagement ring and put every last dollar, except for a very small amount, into an attorney, because I talked to some friends and they're like, you need a good attorney to represent you.
Yeah.
And
so hold on, before we jump into that, I just want to recap some of the things you just hit on, because you really said a lot there. And I think for everybody to really understand the gravity of the situation, it's important to kind of highlight time frame. Here you are, you're in love, you're engaged. This is the man that you've already decided, committed to, right? That you're going to spend the rest of your life with. I mean, that's where your heart was. You have a beautiful little boy. He's not even 3 yet, right? He's what, 2.5, I think? Is that right? Yeah. 2.5
He'll be 3
years
in
old.
January. So, yep.
3 in January. And the thing of this story too, that I just really want to underscore here is that, Ashley and I didn't meet each other all that long ago. I mean, if I had to guess, maybe 6, 7 months. I mean, it wasn't that long ago. It was certainly inside of a year. So 6, 7 months ago, you were thinking that exactly what you said. Well, these services sound really amazing, Gina. This divorce intelligence warrior peace stuff, but thank God I don't need it, right?
Yeah.
And that really wasn't that long ago. That's where your heart was. That's where your life was. Everything was good, right?
Yeah, it was. Yes.
Yeah.
After
And the
really
reason why I'm saying it,
things are finally looking up. Sorry. Go
ahead.
So
I just want the listeners to understand that this wasn't something that, was a long time in the making. I mean, you were really kind of feeling on top of the world in terms of that category of your life, right? And then all of a sudden, not long ago, when was it that the parents moved in and you were feeling like you were being bullied and they were giving you some ultimatums about things you had to do? You didn't really express that much, but feel free if you want to. But when was that? Because I'm just trying to give the listeners more of a timeline here.
Yeah. So that was the beginning of August when his parents moved in, and they had decided, based on my student loans and a decision for me to sign up for a coaching program, that I needed to get a job within 5 days. And he cut off our joint checking account. And 5 days later, I had been searching for work as often as I could while taking care of my son. 5 days later, I hadn't found a job. So he called me on the phone and said, hey, you're taking too long. I've decided that we're done and I'm splitting up our finances right now. You need to start paying your car insurance and all this stuff. And I was like, well, if you're saying that we're done, I'm definitely not going to stay in this house and deal with all of you anymore. So,
Right. And I mean, this is important because for the listeners that have read the Conscious Uncoupling book, part of Catherine Woodward's Thomas work in that book is to identify the level of trauma. And she likens it to different levels of accidents, you know, and I would say yours is like a hit and run because it was a complete surprise out of left field, kind of like just lays you out, right? Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I saw it coming a couple weeks prior to that, but yes,
Yeah,
up until
right.
a couple of weeks prior, yes, it was very much out of the blue. I mean, we had just moved into a new big home, and were talking about how amazing the holidays were going to be. We were painting the living room and making it our big family home. Yes, it was very much out of the blue.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that's just sitting with that for a minute. You know, I think sometimes we just try to shove our feelings under the rug, but like that was huge for you just from the start. Okay. So you were ready to move into the story of, so you're panicked. You'd been a stay-at-home mom for, you know, a period of time. Well, 2 years, did you say? Year and a half? You had a little one and this was it. It was like, you've got to leave, and you had no money. And the only thing you knew was that you had to get a lawyer, a top-notch lawyer, right?
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
where you
correct.
were leaving it off. Yeah. So go ahead.
Yeah.
Then what happened?
Okay. So I quickly, very spur of the moment, decided that I was getting out of there, and I grabbed as much stuff as I could, very much afraid, and packed the car up and packed my son in there and drove away and called my friend and said that we were on our way over. And I was so panicked and terrified and just shaking. And I just remember how scary it was to make that decision. But and a couple hours later, he realized that we weren't coming back, and he threatened me with an Amber Alert. And I knew then that, you know, I called a few people who I knew, and they said that, you know, I just wasn't willing to risk anything to do with my son. So I went straight to an attorney and found the best one that I could afford and paid them the lowest retainer that they would accept, which was all of my money except for a small portion. And I had nothing else for food or anything. I luckily was borrowing a friend of mine car to get around and to get to some job interviews and to the attorney's office and whatnot. So a few weeks into, do you want me to go right into the attorney's story?
Well, as much as you'd like to share. Yes, because as much as we think that, you know, we're the only ones experiencing things, I guarantee you that somebody listening right now is identifying with exactly what you're saying.
Right. And so the woman from the attorney's office, I mean, I spent quite a while talking to her. She definitely earned my trust and my business. And I told her my financial situation, that I really didn't have much at all. And she said that they were willing to work with that. And my ex had demonstrated some behaviors that had really scared people around me and that were concerning to my attorney. So they brought us to an emergency hearing a week or two later. No, probably 3 weeks later. There was one, and then we canceled it, and we tried to work things out between the two of us, and it was just fighting back and forth, fighting in front of my son. You know, it was just not good. So we went to another emergency hearing and tried to express our concerns with his anger issues, and the judge really didn't buy it. So after that, my attorney they bumped up our custody hearing to the following week. And that was on a Friday that we went to the ex parte hearing. And my attorney was like, look, I know you're out of money, but don't worry. I'll talk to the woman who signed me up and we'll figure something out. And then on Monday, 2 days before the custody hearing, they called me and they're like, you know, we would really love to continue working with you, but we have to have this amount of money. We don't work on credit. Is there any way that you could borrow some money from someone or figure it out. And I was like, no, I
Wow.
can't. I can't put anyone else in that situation. I just can't. And they're like, oh, well, we're so sorry. We'll send you some references or recommendations, which they did. And I called all of them, and they're like, legal aid and no one that can help me within 2 days notice.
No,
So
definitely
terrified.
not. Yeah.
No. And this
Mm-hmm.
is right after I had severely pissed off my ex, accusing him of anger issues and, some pretty severe things.
Yeah, that was
And
the strategy, right? That was the legal
yeah,
strategy. Yeah. And I
right.
just want to stop for a minute because I know you just described that when you were in that part of this meeting with the lawyer, you were afraid, you were panicked, terrified. There was threats of Amber Alerts, orders of protection, things like that. And so, it's important to understand, I think, how those emotions play into it, especially then when you go and you meet a lawyer. So, I mean, what were you thinking when you first sat down? Was it for you? This is what I hear from a lot of people, that it's like, I was just so confused. I was so scared. I wasn't even thinking clearly. So I was just trusting and listening. Does that sound about
Oh,
how it was for you? Or what was it like?
absolutely. I just remember her telling me, like, tell me your story. And I was just like, I must sound like a basket case. I don't even know if I'm making sense right now. I'm just trying to tell her as much as I can, as clearly as I can, and get it out. Because, when you're in a situation, you don't see it how other people see it. And everyone around me was saying, this is dangerous. You need to get out. And I was like, going back and forth, like, should I have really left? I care about him, and I had so many hopes of having more babies with him and all this stuff. But yes, I was completely overwhelmed and so
Mm-hmm.
emotional and everything,
Mm-hmm.
sad and scared and angry and oh,
And the
all of it.
strategy was a real hardline strategy, right? It was for supervised access,
Yes,
that he would have supervised access with your son. And that's a hardline
that he would
strategy. I
pay
mean, talk
for the
about,
supervision.
yeah, and draw a line in the sand and put two parents at complete opposites, right? I mean, that
Hmm.
really sets the tone. So I just wonder, obviously, in those moments you thought one way and now you're past it a little further down. But I wonder, in hindsight, what do you think of that strategy? And of course, it varies for each person. But what do you think now?
Yeah, I mean, he does exhibit some behaviors that are scary, but I don't think that that was probably the best approach because it only made him more angry. And then, I was the one left dealing with it. They didn't follow through. The attorneys didn't follow through on their end to follow through on what they were trying to accomplish it. They just kind of got me halfway there to the worst point and then left me.
Stoked the fire and
So
dumped you? That's what's coming
yeah,
to my
exactly.
mind, to be so blunt. That's how it
Yeah.
feels. And I think it's terrible. I just think it's awful. Yeah. So what'd you do? So here you
So
are.
I was panicked and I was calling everyone I knew. And then I'm like, I have to call Gina. And I'm like, I know her schedule is busy. I know she has 2 kids at home too. I know this is such short notice, but I remember calling you and leaving you a message, like bawling on your voice message saying, Gina, please call me. I really need your help, and just praying that you would call me back because I did not know what to do. And I
Yeah.
was terrified of walking into that courtroom by myself with him and his attorney, pissed off, just ready to, like, you know, demolish me in
Yeah.
front of the judge and take my son away from me. I didn't know what was going to happen.
Well, he was defensive at that point.
Oh,
He
yeah.
had his guard up because he was just accused of all of these things. And
Hmm.
here you are having to face the possibility, well, it was scheduled, so it was real possibility, a scheduled possibility of going in and having a hearing and having to convince the judge without even having a lawyer next to you. And you had a
Hmm.
mediation first, right? A mediation scheduled first. So
Right.
I know, I remember the call. I remember when we talked. So take us from there. Then what happened?
Okay. So Gina calmed me. You calmed me down so much and
Oh,
helped me completely shift my mindset. And you told me to do some journaling about the things that I valued in Brian, my ex, as a father. And I just remember writing down everything that you said to do. And I just remember the mindset that I was in. And I was thinking, like, I don't know if this is going to work. Like, I'm feeling pretty stressed out. I'm so emotional right now. I don't know if this is going to work, but I have no other choice, because if I don't do this, I am going to go in there emotional and angry, and it's just going to turn into a huge, even worse disaster. So
right.
You told me to do some journaling about what I valued in him as a father and as a person,
which is like completely opposite, right? I mean, I'm not naive to that fact. It's completely opposite of what your natural instinct and natural feeling is in that state. But there was a reason for that. And the reason really, it was because in talking to you, it was important, I think, to understand what your intention was in the future, how you saw yourself parenting, knowing that he's the father. So you use whatever label you want, right? Co-parenting, parallel parenting, but what did the future look like to you? And that was really me getting from you what your intention is, what your vision is for your family unit going forward, and trying to parse out from there what was most important. And what rang through wasn't really this element of danger per se. It was more of these fears of the unknown, what could happen legally, of losing custody, that kind of stuff, but also a deeper sense of knowing that there was a way for the two of you to still be cooperative with each other, at least for the sake of your son. Forget about the relationship between the two of you, but like there was something still there. And the reason why I'm bringing this out and talking about it right here is because I think that's important for everybody to know. And if you can even just try to take some time, even before meeting with your lawyer, to really question yourself about what your intention is and what the future is that you want to create now that you're left knowing that the relationship together isn't going to happen, that has to be, I think, one of the first steps. Because then everything you do should build and support that. And so that's why in Ashley's case, my advice when you hear it might sound so, I don't know, confronting, I guess, because I'm telling her to do things that were completely opposite of what her natural instinct was. She was very upset, and I'm encouraging her to do some deep breathing, do some heart-focused breathing, and get into her heart space and listen to her heart, right, Ashley? And journal about the value that he brought to the relationship and what he brings as a father. Because my goal with bringing that out and asking Ashley to do that was so that she could soften her mind around what was happening, so that she could begin to, kind of lay that dagger down and begin to sort of see things and open up new possibilities that don't exist if you're just standing there fully armed, Exactly. So that's kind of the backstory that I wanted everyone to understand. Tools might be different depending on the circumstance, but they should stem from what it is you want to create, what kind of family you want to have on the other side. Because if you have a child together, it doesn't matter. You're breaking up, you're divorcing, whatever you're legally doing, you're still mom and dad. And that's going to continue in most cases, right? I can speak to every little case, but so that was kind of the point of that. And so you did it, right?
Yes, I did it. Yeah. I did everything. And you led me through such a powerful, little mindfulness and meditation beforehand. And that really just showed me instantly in that moment how everything that you talk about, is miraculous.
Oh, I forgot. I did a coherent flow. I forgot. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But really, it was you that did it. I'm just a guide. I'm just, a coach, just offering suggestions, but it's you. And that's the other important part that I want you to understand, and everybody listening. It's not me. It's not anybody. We're just there to support. Lawyers are there to support, counselors, coaches, right? But actually, you were the one who went and did the work. And doing the work is a huge step because, you have to get past that wall of resistance. And I'm sure you had that too. I'm sure when we hung up and you were faced with these tasks that I gave you, right? I'm sure you had a wall of resistance.
Absolutely. Every journaling note that I was making was full of resistance. And I had to kind of get that out in order to show up and to create what, was able to unfold with your help at the mediation and the hearing. So I had to break through that for my son. I had to let go of all that crap and anger that I was hanging on to and remember that it was all for the benefit of my son. I wasn't trying to take my son away from his dad. I don't want that. He loves his dad. He is a great dad. And that's not what I wanted, no matter how angry I was with him.
Yeah, right. So you were able to separate the issues, which is huge. And even if it's just for that moment, for that night, for your prep work. I mean, it's not to say this is a one and done thing, right? So, and it can't be because matters of the heart are never healed that quickly. So, okay. So you did the work that night and the next morning you had mediation. Yep.
The next morning we had mediation and I was so afraid because I knew how angry he was going to be. And I remember, walking into the courthouse and walking down the hall and seeing him. And as soon as he saw me, he turned the other way. He would not even look at me. And I just remember walking up to him, so afraid, but I walked straight up to him and I said, look, I don't want to fight. I'm not here to fight. And I could see immediately all of the walls that he had around him just melted.
Oh.
And mediation, we had our disagreements and everything, but it was not anything like I was envisioning how bad that it could have been. We worked through a lot of stuff and came to an agreement.
And you came to an agreement.
Yeah.
I just woo! I just want to celebrate you because everything you did took such courage. Everything you did, doing the work, calling me, any time that you're willing to take steps to do something opposite of what everyone else is doing, which let's face it. And if you look at most, even Facebook groups dealing with divorce and separation, there's still a lot of hate going on. There's still a lot of bandwagon, jump on and everybody point your fingers and blame and shame. There's not a lot of talk about turning inward first and trying to heal and salvage what you have and creating something better, on the other side. So, and that's what you did. That's exactly what you did. And I just think that takes such courage to do that. And I know you can hear it's a work in progress, right? You're still at the beginning, but how do you feel now having gone through that? Do you feel like you were able to find a little forgiveness or compassion? How do you feel now about things?
Yeah, absolutely. And I see so much how my attitude going into it and just how I present things via text message or anything, totally, he reflects back to me my attitude and my mood in that moment. And I realize how on top of it I have to stay for our son.
Wow.
We cannot be fighting.
Yes. Wow. That is so
it's
deep.
an everyday.
It's true. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I just want to celebrate you. I hope everybody listening, Ashley's in the group, our Divorce with Heart Facebook group. So hit her up if you want. I got permission to say that. So I know it's okay with you, Ashley. But I mean, that's why we're in there. We're all in there to support each other. And it is still an early journey, right? But now I just feel like you are off to such a beautiful start. And that's what I was hoping that everybody listening could take from this about just the possibility that can happen if you just commit to shifting things around from your own mind, your own heart, your own perspective, because that's what did it at the end of the day. And it wasn't me, it was you, but that's what did it. And I feel like you're on your way. You are the warrior of peace. Do you feel that?
I'm starting to feel like it, but not without your help. What you do, Gina, is not to be underestimated. It is so it's undescribable. Aww. It's just I thank you so much.
Oh,
So yes,
thank
I
you.
am starting to feel
Oh,
stronger every day and clearer every day, and
yep. Just one step at a time, and you're doing it. And it's a practice. It's a practice. So, and I hope everybody listening will feel free to reach out, give you a hug. You're so brave to come on and share your story, because I know it's difficult to talk about these things, and I just so appreciate it. I thank you. And I just want to mention a little plug for you. But if anybody's out there in the California area, Southern California, and you're looking for somebody with a social work background, addictions counseling, you need a good worker, right? Ashley, you're still looking, right?
yes, I am. Yeah.
Yeah. So hit her up on Facebook.
Yes, I'm open to whatever possibilities or opportunities are out there. So
yes, let's get this mama employed, right?
yes.
All right. Well, thank you, Ashley, so much for being here. I really appreciate it. We'll have to check back with you down the line, and so excited for people to connect with you in the group. So if you haven't joined the group yet and you're new to the show, it's a Facebook group, Divorce with Heart. I'd love to have you there. And if you like what I'm talking about, and if you like this show, let me know. Leave me a review. Leave me a rating in iTunes. I read every single one of them. Every time somebody messages me on Facebook, I read it. If you find my law page, I read it. I can't always respond, but I read everyone, and it just means so much to me. And it helps me to know what you need to hear, and how I can support you. And that's what it's about. So reach out to me if you're listening through iTunes. Leave a review, leave a rating, subscribe, share the show. Let's make this happen. This is a movement, and it can only happen with all of us together, changing how we do things. So thank you so much. Talk to you next week. Thank you so much for joining me today. Come back next week, and be sure to visit my website at dpremalaw.com to book a call, or let's connect on Facebook at dpremalaw, where you can join my group for more support. Please remember that the information shared is for general and entertainment purposes only, and that by calling in or messaging me, we are not creating an attorney-client relationship, and my advice is not intended to be legal advice. For specific legal advice, please contact a lawyer in your jurisdiction.
This show is brought to you by InflowRadio.com, the best curated talk radio network for personal development, wellness, spirituality, and conscious business.